Hey, I'm Shepherd Games. I make long videos retelling stories from video games while adding my critique. Soma is a sci-fi horror game from Frictional Games, the developer of Amnesia. This may present some expectations for you. I had my own preconceived notions of what to expect before I played it. If you're coming to this video blind, let me assure you that you are likely unprepared for what this game has in store for you. Before I start, I'll warn you that I will discuss this game in exhausting detail, and as such, it's filled with spoilers. For those who haven't played it, I'll leave a warning fairly early on in this video. It'll seem as though I've given some spoilers already, but it's just the tip of the iceberg compared to what this game has in store. The story is very well done, and as such, I can easily recommend it. I own the game on Steam, but it's also available on Game Pass. It's highly accessible for those who become interested. It's also on every platform. Should you choose to stop the video at any point and go off and play it, good. I won't begrudge that behavior, as I really think this is a great story and it deserves to get as many eyes on it as possible. Before I start, I want to do something I normally don't do. I want to directly argue against a point another creator made. Joseph Anderson does long-form critiques of video games, and I think he does a great job of it. He spoke on this game, and very early on in his video, he states that Soma is not a horror game. This seems to come from the fact that he wasn't scared of it. I respect this man's content and his opinions, but on this point, I just think it's not very good. It's not good. This is very much a horror game. You may or may not be scared by it, but the setting alone is enough to clarify that this is a horror game. I'll feature some, but not all, of the more tense points of the game in the interest of showcasing what it has to offer, but also in the interest of fighting this strange point he made. If you type in Soma analysis into YouTube, his video is number 3 in the search, and it's one of the most viewed. It's because of this fact that I feel it's important to argue against him here. I think almost immediately in my video, you'll see how his argument is flawed, but his reach is far greater than most who've covered this game, so it's become somewhat of a sticking point with me.
Catherine?
Be quiet! Don't look at it!
Jesus, I hope I don't sound like a real see you next Tuesday in this whole bit. Did I mention that I really like his content and respect him thoroughly? Audible sigh time. With that tangent out of the way, let the story begin.
Are you okay, Simon? I think you're bleeding.
Oh, that's nothing. It's just my brain can't stop bleeding from the accident.
Here, take this.
No, that's for later, for the scan.
It's green.
Ashley, I need to tell you something.
Simon, please don't make this weird.
No, it's not like that. Why now?
Who's David Munchie?
Why is there never enough time?
For what?
Christ.
Simon awakens in his apartment after this nightmare. He has an appointment with the Dr. Munchie to do a brain scan. The doctor reminds him to drink a tracer fluid to aid in this process. As a player, this means you opening drawers and generally exploring his little apartment and learning about him while searching for this mysterious fluid. He works at a bookstore in Toronto, and he's hoping to cope with the aftermath of the accident that has caused some sort of internal bleeding that will likely take his life. A newspaper article says that the accident was caused by a distracted mother in an SUV, and a woman named Ashley Hall died before the ambulance arrived. So that clarifies the intro. Once his tracer fluid is found, he can drink it and head out to his appointment. He's on the train on his way, and he gets a call from his friend at the bookstore. He's hired someone to cover the comics section, and Simon's upset, as this was an area that Ashley used to cover. It's clear that she was the one in the car with him that night, and he realizes she isn't coming back to work, and tells his friend that he understands filling an empty spot. His friend doesn't seem to know how to relate to Simon.
Well, good luck. Hope they find a way to reverse the whole, dying thing.
Dying thing? You're the worst support ever.
What should I say?
I'll see you later, Jesse. Don't burn the place down while I'm gone.
Over and out, buddy.
I can sympathize with that. At Dr. Munchie's office, it seems almost vacant. It turns out he's basically utilizing space from a local university. If this experimental program is going to change the world, it will start from humble beginnings. After finding a way to unlock the door to the office space, Simon can finally meet up with his doctor. Munchie tells Simon that he is technically a Mr. Munchie, as this work will be for his thesis. His plan is to scan Simon's brain and make a computer model to bombard with stimuli. That way they can create a treatment plan without having to run Simon's body through a bunch of experiments. This seems enough to convince Simon as he sits down for the brain scan.
All right, let me just get this out of the way. You are Simon Jarrett, correct?
Right.
Toronto, Canada, Munchie. Born 1988, July 16.
Right.
Flat neurograph, version 6. Good. All files in order.
Will this hurt?
It's just a scan. It'll hurt about as much as getting your picture taken.
Indians thought cameras would steal their souls.
Is that so? Well, let's hope they're wrong. Ready? Say cheese.
What happened? Hello? Mr. Munchie? Did something go wrong? This isn't funny. What the hell is this place? How did I get here?
Now that's what I call a rude awakening. Now when I first played this game, I knew really nothing about it, save that it was made by the Amnesia people. When someone gets a brain scan in a horror game, you're gonna have some expectations. Nonetheless, it's just as abrasive to you as it is to Simon to wake up in this place. The first room is locked and your path of escape is your tutorial of sorts to demonstrate that most items lying around can be picked up and thrown. You break the window to escape the room with some of these items lying around. There are these panels all over the place that replay past conversations to Simon. It's unclear what gives them this ability to access these, and this further confuses Simon. I will not sully anyone's minds with my initial predictions of what this place is or where it is located, but I will say that I was wrong. The sign on the wall says Pathos 2, and if Simon engages with one of these robots, he can again hear another conversation.
Hey you, can you talk? Can you talk like the others? Why are you like this? You want some structure, Joe? Yeah, you do. So weird. Doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna shut you down now, okay? Yeah, you're creepy as hell, so I'm gonna shut you down.
There are these strange growths all over the place, and it's clear that whatever this place is, it's in disrepair with no signs of other humans. The audio design in this game is one of its greatest strengths. I will likely continue to remark on it, but the ambient backing tracks combined with the eerie noises from your locations creates a feeling of unease. Early on in this exploration, the lights go out and Simon can hear some distressing noises coming from behind this door. I had already played this game before, but I didn't remember every moment, and I was tentative to enter. Inside the room, Simon can find the Omni tool, which will be of great use to him throughout the story. In the back of the room, the appendages that have been seen all over the place have seemingly absorbed someone. Oh yeah, plus this person is also headless now. Maybe I should have led with that? Simon continues down the hall. Yeah, it's a good thing I'm not super scared of horror things, or that kind of thing might put me on edge. The Omni tool isn't useful yet, and it fails to open the way forward. The trick is to install a chip in the machine. Simon has to return to the room he awakened in, access a terminal, which has some interesting spaghetti code referencing Simon Jarrett, I might add, and unlock the toolbox to grab a tool chip. With the tool chip installed, Simon has his way forward. With the door open, the real setting of Pathos 2 is revealed. He's somewhere deep under the ocean. A radio log nearby features a pair of workers talking about this place. Epsilon Station. One of them will miss it since they've worked there for years. The other will not be missing a power station filled with crazy machines. Simon proceeds further and finds a growth. I was really tempted to call this thing a glowing butthole, but, well, now I did. After touching this growth, Simon exclaims that he doesn't hurt anymore. Yeah, bruh, I wouldn't touch that, but you do you. After crawling through some vents, he finds some strange kind of control room. A machine lays on the floor hooked up to a bunch of panels via the strange appendages. You can't go anywhere, and your only real interactive option is to start pulling them out. You still have no further options, so you pull the second cord. So that was pretty dark. With the poor robot no longer hogging the power, the station can be turned on again. After solving a very simple puzzle, the station lurches to life.
What's happening? Hello? Is there anyone there?
Hey, can you hear me?
I hear you. Epsilon, what's going on?
I have no idea. I just sort of woke up here.
In the room right now?
It was like a seat with a helmet.
Is that right? What's your name?
I'm Simon Jarrett.
And what do you... signal... Damn relays. Where are you now?
Someplace dealing with electrical power. I'm not sure if it's a plant or a transformer.
Yeah, you're probably in the thermal plant somewhere. You want to go upstairs to the comm center. It's the room with the dome ceiling.
Hey, look, this place is not... There's something seriously wrong here. Hello?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. We lost another relay. Listen, head for the comm center upstairs. I'll wait here.
Everything from the sounds of the station coming online, the kind of upbeat backing track, and the voice performance of the cast impresses me here. To this point, Simon has not been in any actual danger, although there have been hints of it. This will be your first encounter with some of the inhabitants of Pathos 2. For the remainder of the game, the key will be utilizing rudimentary stealth elements to escape these creatures when they're present. Sometimes you can run away, other times you will be caught. You can never gain access to weapons of any kind or any alternative means to fighting them off. This is not my favorite style of horror game. If running away from scary creatures was this game's main appeal, then I would not be making a video on it. Thankfully, the true horror of this game is in its story and its premise. Many of you might have caught on by now what's going on here, but you won't truly know the depth of the rabbit hole without seeing it to its end. After getting past the creature, there's another control room of sorts. There's another growth that can heal Simon. In spite of the fact that you would never want to do this in real life, you do not want to deal with the filters that will cover your screen while injured. You heal Simon. A hallway reveals the corpse of a man named Carl Semken. Poor bastard. The nearby terminal also reveals an unsent email from Carl saying that he had the power station online and he was finally getting out of here. Sorry, buddy. Not in the cards. The terminal can also unlock the adjacent rooms, but there's only power to do it a few at a time. The storage room contains a CCRV-7 black box. All the crew members had one installed. They observe the crew's overall health and monitor their brainwaves to share with the Pathos 2 Warden unit that will henceforth be referred to as the WOW. Trust me, this won't be the last time you will hear from the WOW. In another room, a friend can be found on the floor.
What are you?
Are you blind? It's me, Carl Semken.
Simon keeps trying to explain to Carl that he is presently in the form of a robot. Carl is pretty sure that Simon has a few screws loose, though. He's Carl. Simon is the one acting kooky. Last thing Carl remembers is using a helper bot, and Simon thinks that he might have merged with it. And Carl says that this isn't possible because when piloting a helper bot, you just get a video feed, and he can clearly see his arms. He just needs a little help here. At the end of the hall, there's a lever you can pull. If you're a new player, you're likely going to pull this in an attempt to aid Carl. I was not a new player. As such, I remembered what I was about to do. I'm really sorry, Carl. I'm sorry, but I had to demonstrate that. For science and all that. To make a long story longer, you follow some steps and you get the power rerouted to the comms relay. But it also allows the creature to follow you into the room. You bamboozle it and make your way up to the comms center. Simon can now reconnect to the woman on the phone. The call from before said it was from Lambda Station, so you have to find the correct frequency from the list and then manually adjust the antenna.
Hey, are you there? I found the dome ceiling.
Oh, that's better. Simon, was it?
Simon Jarrett.
Hi, Simon. I'm Catherine. Have you figured out what's going on yet?
Me? I was hoping you'd have some answers.
I probably have some. What do you want to know?
Where to even begin? I mean, what is this place? How did I get here? And why do the robots talk like they're people?
Well, you're at Upsilon, clearly. Have you never been there before? Where did you work?
The Grimoire in Toronto. Is that really important?
No, I mean, where did you work at Pathos 2?
I don't know what that is.
That's unexpected. Did you come directly from Toronto?
Yeah, I did. And it was very unexpected.
Have you seen any people? Like staff or field technicians?
Only robots, crazy ones.
This is also strange.
You're telling me.
Catherine instructs Simon to find his way to Lambda just before losing connection, and the comm center is filled with water. Simon awakens submerged in water and in some kind of suit. He questions how this is possible. You do as well. He escapes the breach, and now he's able to take a bit of a hike on the ocean floor. I love this soundscape more than anything.
Lambda. Find the shuttle to Lambda.
If you're one of the few people who watch my Narcosis video, one of the strongest and weakest points of that game was the sounds of the creatures in the water and the sounds of the character moving through it. This game does that exceedingly well. The sounds of the current rushing around Simon, the dive suit's oxygen rushing in and out, Simon's heavy breathing, and assorted creatures skittering around nearby. It all sounds suitably underwater. I'll try and abstain from gushing non-stop about the audio like I did in my Silent Hill 2 video, but again, just like in that video, it deserves to be discussed. There's a nearby audio log where a woman named Amy calls into Theta station to talk to someone named Strasky. He's concerned with keeping the power online to keep the people in the other stations alive. She is unconcerned with the power. The machines killed Carl. We might have guessed, but now we know for sure. There are rogue machines running underwater, muttering nonsense under their breath that Simon has to dodge. They're just as confused of their identity as any of the other denizens of this place. The feeling underwater here is so alien. I love it. Your path forward is pretty well signposted, as there's lots of lighting and signs demonstrating the purpose of all the nearby buildings. You can find one of the helper bots trapped under some rocks, and he'll demonstrate his value almost instantly by aiding your entry into the shuttle station. You'll visit various stations that will encompass the whole of Pathos 2 during this experience, and every time you enter one, you'll go through an airlock that will drain out the water. I love the sounds of the water whooshing and draining from the rooms, the sounds of the stations coming to life, and mostly I appreciate the feeling of wondering what will be behind that next door.
Let's hope the shuttles still work. Where did I get a flashlight?
You're right, Simon. Where the hell did you get that flashlight from? For some reason, there's insufficient power to get the shuttle moving. Exploring further down the tracks, you can find out why.
Hey, are you...
Don't hurt me!
Can I help?
It won't let me die. Nothing is allowed to die.
This is Amy. You've had a ton of conversations that you found on the radio that have discussed her. The drawings that I found earlier on the bridge were made by Amy. She asked Simon to send help if he comes in contact with anyone else. That help will not come, and you cannot proceed forward without cutting Amy's life support. This is not like pulling the cord on that confused robot earlier, or at least it won't be for most people. Amy was a human. Simon does what has to be done.
Shit, are you okay? Oh, fuck.
If you're anything like me, you rationalized your decision. Her quality of life was incredibly poor. You were sparing her from this wretched existence. Well, that is what you tell yourself anyway. Simon has no outward exposition on his feelings on the matter. With the power back on, Simon can get the shuttle running and head to Lambda. While on his way, a commercial of sorts plays for Pathos 2 that demonstrates its original purpose. This deep-sea facility was a giant railgun that was built to fire satellites into space from the depths of the ocean, without utilizing alternative propulsion. It also featured several research projects in some of the sites. Gotcha. Giant coil gun running longer than a marathon that can launch satellites and deep-sea probes. Surely that won't come up again. Wink wink, nudge nudge. Shortly thereafter, the shuttle crashes and Simon has to make his way on foot. And with that, I'll say to those of you who haven't played this game that might be interested, I think this is a good place to stop for spoilers. You might have a good idea where this is going. I'm making a thorough video on it because I find it to be a truly engrossing story with memorable voice performances and a great setting. Now, the gameplay might not be your cup of tea. If you so choose, there's a safe mode where the monsters don't take an interest in you for those who don't want to have to stealthily maneuver around. This could allow someone to take their time exploring and learning as much about this world as possible. I will not completely touch on every character or moment, so perhaps one could still find enjoyment playing it, even after its story was spoiled. But that isn't my recommendation. If I've captured your imagination at all, then I'd recommend giving it a go and coming back later. I won't be mad. If you don't care about spoilers, or you've already completed this journey and are here to reminisce, Or perhaps you're just here to have me poorly recapture this amazing story. Let's continue. The end of the tunnel leads to another airlock, which in turn leads to another trip along the ocean floor. Again, there are clever lights signposting your way. Eventually, Simon does make it to Lambda. There's a creature in the halls blocking his way, and Catherine tells him not to look at it. Your health seems to be affected by looking at the assorted creatures all over Pathos 2, and this is the first time they directly explain this to you. After a bit of a detour around the facility, Simon will finally get to meet Catherine face to face.
Simon, right here.
Simon is immensely disappointed that she's just another robot.
Calm down, it's not the end of the world.
You sure? It sure as hell looks like it. For all I know, there's no one left except for me.
What do you mean? I'm right here.
Don't take this the wrong way, but I meant any humans left except for me.
Have you looked at yourself lately? You're a walking, talking diving suit with some electronics slapped on for good measure.
I don't...
You don't want to think about it? We'll start thinking about it.
I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be this. I want out.
Catherine pleads for him to stop moping and asks for him to help with a task that she was working on when she was still human. In this process, he takes her cortex out of the machine and drops it into his Omni tool. Now she can travel with Simon and interact with him at assorted terminals when he plugs it in. The sensation of coming online seems to be peculiar to Catherine, but she doesn't linger on the moment. Back when she was human, she saved brain scans of the entire crew and had plans to put them into an artificial world to launch into space. Seeing as she's a robot now, she can't be certain if her mission was accomplished. At first, it was just a pet project when things went sour at the bottom of the ocean, but now the real bomb has dropped. A comet has hit the surface of the Earth and eradicated all life on its surface. Her pet project was later renamed the Ark. We see now why she's been so invested in this endeavor. Catherine asks Simon to investigate a nearby terminal to find the current Ark's whereabouts. On your way, then. They're kind of casual in this conversation, but this is the first time where it's plainly stated that Simon is not technically human. Catherine describes him as a walking, talking diving suit with some electronics slapped on. It was heavily hinted at by Simon's mere existence in this space, plus a diving suit magically appeared when he was submerged in water. Remember the flashlight? Yeah. It's nice to have someone finally acknowledge Simon's current state, though. On his way back to check out the Ark's location, you can find a letter from one of the Pathos 2 crew members' parents sent the night before the comet's collision. Apparently, the news was covering the moment-to-moment updates about the comet right until the very end. This father is sad he can't spend his final moments with his son, but he hopes he can live a life worth living under the waves. Really makes you think about how you might react in a true end-time scenario like that, where you could see it coming. There are also crew interviews discussing their opinions on the Ark. The first woman thinks it's important to preserve any remnants of humanity. Ian Peterson thinks it's more along the lines of being a task to keep them busy. The final interview is from a man named Mark Sarang.
What are your thoughts on the Ark project?
The idea is just incredible. By every definition. It really makes you think about what it means to be human.
He is really inspired by this project and believes he can go on living through the reality of continuity. Whatever the hell that means, am I right? The same terminal has a questionnaire about your feelings on the Ark. My first time playing, I didn't realize what I was looking at. This questionnaire is actually intended for the occupants of the Ark once at their destination. I filled this questionnaire in the voice of Simon nonetheless. He's in a strange place and in a strange body after all. The scanner on the terminal also reveals that the Ark is at Tau Station. It also reveals that this facility is somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. With the new knowledge that the Ark has not left the planet, Simon asks Catherine if she could put them on the Ark. She says they could be placed inside, but she isn't optimistic about making it to Tau. Simon promises her that he'll do all the legwork. After all, what else are they going to do? Catherine isn't excited about being carried around in Simon's pocket, but he promises to plug her in as soon as possible. Simon makes his way back out of Lambda Station and outside the airlock, and nearby he locates an old miniature vessel that sadly does not operate. The next stop is the wreck of the Curie, an old ship that used to make runs between the stations. There might be another small vessel there. I love the vibe of exploring the ruins of this old ship. I'll never take a submersible down to investigate the ruins of the Bismarck or the Titanic, so this is likely the closest I'll get to that feeling of adventure. I'm the type of person who's both thrilled and terrified by the depths of the oceans. This game plays very well into that. What I didn't love about this exploration was the entity in the diving suit that's creeping around. The labyrinthine corridors of the ship are designed in such a way that you can okey-doke this stalking enemy. However, I never got the hang of the navigation here. I feel like I did way better my first time than I did now, but since I didn't record that, there's no way of knowing. In the canteen, a TV displays the ruins of the Earth's surface. I did make it to the shuttle eventually, though. When Catherine is plugged in, she has some bad news.
Huh? What? Oh, you made it. This is much better. Let's see if we can't get this thing moving. Wait, what? Safety locks are blocking the vessel's release. Are you kidding? How much more of an emergency could this ship be in? It's on the bottom of the sea. Take a look at the engine room and see if you can figure it out. Maybe there's an override or something.
There's monsters out there, like the ones we saw at Lambda.
The more reason to get going.
What?
Come on, you know the drill. Don't look at them or get too close. It'll mess with your circuits.
Oh, shit.
We need to get out of here.
I know. I'm going.
So Simon goes back out to adventure in the ship. Eventually, the diving suit freak blocked my path. For purposes of demonstration, I ran right into it. Simon gets knocked out and you respawn right in the same place. If you're caught a second time, you get a game over. The thing is, the autosave is pretty darn generous, so it never really feels like a harsh punishment for death. The biggest punishment is actually the fact that you can't explore at your leisure, at least for people like me it is. There are tons of notes, terminal entries, audio diaries, and other flavor littered throughout the entirety of this game. Elements that fill out your understanding of various stations, the people that work there, and the world that they were from in this future timeline. The assorted foes lurking around can speed you up out of a location before you really feel as though you're done exploring. Before the spoiler break, I advise that there's a safe mode for this game. The running and hiding from enemies is one of the main mechanics of this game, other than simple puzzles and exploration. Far be it from me to discourage people from engaging with one of the few gameplay mechanics in the game. For some, the thought of a safe mode will be absurd. I can certainly imagine that for some, though, this will be the ideal way to play the game. Both times I've gone through a normal mode, but having the freedom to soak in these environments and learn about this world without having to worry about those enemies does sound appealing to me. I'll leave that to a player's discretion, though. Another room has a recounting of the peak at the planet's surface. Again, I sat and pondered that feeling of being amongst the last remaining humans on the planet, stuck at the bottom of the ocean, no other home to return to. That feeling, for me, is dire. In the engine room, there are more of the umbilical cords affixed to the engines. When they're pulled, the shit hits the fan. Thank God for Catherine. She gets this show on the road. She says the tentacles are a component of the WOW, the aforementioned warden unit that was charged with maintaining the safety of the crew. It was attaching itself to the Curie to keep the systems online for an unknown reason. By sabotaging the WOW's efforts on the Curie, Simon has accidentally sabotaged his chances on this emergency vessel. Catherine does her best to guide the craft towards Delta before it crashes. Remember the little helper bot we pulled from the rocks earlier? That's a good little guy. Catherine did her job well, and the sub crashed right at Delta Station. There's an underwater Zeppelin system that can take Simon to Theta. Unfortunately, it isn't technically operational right now. In one of the rooms, Simon finds a body that reveals that someone named Akers lost his mind down here. I will not go into the stories of every crew member you can find information on. That would not only be time consuming, but I also want to encourage someone to give this a go and leave something to find for those who decide to watch this and still play it. If you explore thoroughly, you'll find information on the lives and the deaths of many of the original Pathos 2 crew members. Some of them are artists, some are all business, some have their head in the clouds, and some are like Catherine and more scientifically oriented and not so great at social interactions. Just through the environmental storytelling, you can learn a lot about this bunch, and it feels worth your time. Well, for me, it was worth my time. This room has incoherent thoughts scrawled across the walls. Akers is sided with the WOW. Putting together the last memories of the body and seeing the state of the room makes it pretty clear what's happened here. Rough. While exploring around, you're liable to find a friendly bot just maneuvering around and going about their working day.
Don't worry about it. I got this. Man, you can really tell when Astrid is off platform. This place turns into such a locker room. Not in a good way either.
To get the Zeppelin working, you need to line up the antenna and sync it with one of the remaining working Zeppelin and request it to return. Once it arrives, you can listen to Akers on a call, and it gives a good idea of his mind state.
Do you hear me speaking? Of course you do. I wanted to let you know that I know. You didn't blindly beg me out of the herd. The slow waves of Delta crashing against the shore had an undertow that pulls you into a slumber. It's a beautiful thing, and I won't be selfish. I will help. Tuck them in, watch them sleep. They too will find peace within the universe of the WOW.
That's cool. Catherine can now be plugged in. Bad news is the tool chip on the Omni tool has gone bad.
We need to get a new tool chip and switch it.
Care to point me in the direction of the closest tool chip storage?
I think it would be easier to just take one from a robot.
What? Just knock a robot over the head and steal their chips?
The toolbox over there says it has a stun baton. You could use that.
Come on, I don't want to hurt anyone. Isn't this a bit much?
It's just a robot, Simon.
We're just robots. Sort of. I'll get us a chip.
Now Simon can go off and find a tool chip. Now, where would I find a robot with a tool chip installed? There's no alternative. Your only option to get the Zeppelin moving is to destroy our poor, good-natured friend. At least not that I've found. They really don't make it easy on you. What hurts even more than having to kill that poor guy is leaving that stun baton behind for some unknown reason. Get your head on straight, Simon. There's another diver here, affixed by more of the WOW's manifestations. You can see this poor soul is still breathing. They won't plead for help like others have, but they are technically alive. You have no other option but to leave them here.
Thanks, Simon. Don't be mad, okay? We really needed that chip. We'd be stuck here.
Could you do it? Kill a robot like that?
I get attached to them too. I'm not a monster. But in this case, it had to be done.
He was talking. I mean, he was delusional, but he seemed sincere. present.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's fine.
Was he really that different from us? It's just beginning to sink in. I mean, really sink in. I'm a robot.
Didn't we cover this already?
Guess I've known ever since I woke up at Upsilon. I just keep suppressing it. Like my brain doesn't want me to think about it. It's really getting hard not to think about it.
Yeah. Could you maybe hit that switch over there so we could get moving?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Catherine is matter-of-fact at all times. She's far more comfortable in her current state than Simon. She has accepted the reality of her current predicament. Simon still thinks of himself as the man from Toronto that works in a bookstore. To be fair to him, he's had far less time than Catherine to acclimate and come to acceptance.
You did really good back there, Simon. We got a slight delta detour, but we're back on track.
Yeah.
We should touch down on a cargo platform just outside Theta. Then we just head inside, grab the Dunbat, and head down the abyss, 4,000 meters. That's a long way. We don't have to worry, though, because with the Dunbat, the Ark could have been in the Mariana Trench. It'll hold for anything.
That's great.
And then we can start listening to other people when they talk, because that's how conversations work.
What? Oh, sorry. I just can't stop thinking about what we've become. It's clear that we're no longer human. But then how can I feel like Simon? How can I feel like anything at all? I mean, technically, I don't have any ears, no mouth. Christ, that's a weird thing to think about. I mean, I'm making sounds. I'm still saying things.
You sure are. Okay. Your new body most likely has senses similar to those you had as a human. And your mind, only knowing one way to perceive the world, superimposes that skill set on top of your new features.
So my mind is covering it up, pretending nothing's different.
If it didn't, you'd probably be incapable of interacting with the world at all. And the stress would either kill you or make you go insane.
So I've found a good balance between awareness and ignorance. Does that mean I shouldn't think about this stuff, or are my thoughts actually making me cope? Could I tip the balance by suddenly gaining some insight and go insane?
I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, we have real things to deal with. Saving mankind, remember? Speaking of which, we're closing in on Theta. I'll eject the Omnitool. As always, don't forget to take me with you.
Kath, before you go, the artificial intelligence you mentioned in the escape vessel?
Yeah, the Warden unit, the WOW.
Is it the WOW's fault that we're like this? I mean, it seems like something an unreliable AI would do.
I suppose it set the ball in motion, but it's not directed with purpose. It's really complicated to explain how machines think, Simon. Concentrate on getting inside Theta, okay? See you soon.
You know me. I struggle with brevity, and the thought of trying to concisely convey the intent of these conversations makes me tense. Plus, Catherine and Simon's interactions are key to this story working. As you explore, you're often tasked with taking Catherine and the Omnitool, and in those moments between taking her out and placing her at the next terminal, you're left to your own devices. I grew to miss her company. I felt just like Simon would. Lonely. Having her company makes even the most tense scenarios more bearable. Soma does a great job of manipulating you to feel as though you are Simon. The first-person perspective is used to perfection here. There's a robot outside the doors of Theta who identifies herself as Robin Bass. She explains that she and other crew members killed themselves after their brain scans. This is the continuity that Mark Sarang spoke of in his audio log. The idea of these people is that they want to continue their lives on the Ark immediately after their brain scan. Robin feels sorry for Catherine because she would always get in trouble for those who killed themselves, but it was important to her that her living vessel not outlive the Ark version. When you're scanned and put in the Ark, there are two versions of you living simultaneously after all. She's under the impression that this version of her is presently in the Ark, and Simon decides to keep up the ruse. This is pretty amazing, right? Poor Robin. Inside Theta, there are several problems to solve. One of them is fixing the network while a WoW monstrosity roams nearby. This I will mention and not elaborate on. The more interesting location in this area stores a bunch of brain scans. One of these terminals has Simon's brain scan and Dr. Munchie's scan. Catherine refers to these as legacy scans. There are also audio recordings after Simon's original scan, him talking with Munchie about how freaky the scan was, the roadmap for fixing his bleeding brain, and finally a recording with Dr. Munchie apologizing to Simon that his brain scan could not find a cure for what ailed him. Simon has come to terms that he would not pull out of his condition. He tells Munchie that his brain is on file and gives Dr. Munchie the go-ahead to use his brain scan for research in the future. He sees this as similar to a donated organ. It's like he can live on or something. He had no idea when he made that statement how true those words would ring eventually. This brain scan would become the template for all these working monstrosities constructed by the WoW, the Ark, and the Simon that resides on Pathos 2 right this moment. There are dorm rooms for all the tenants of Theta here. Again, I promise not to elaborate on every crew member, but these rooms are chock full of game flavor. Needless to say, some of the rooms are evidence that Sarang and Robin weren't the only fans of continuity theory. Simon questions Catherine about all the robots and monsters that think of themselves as extensions of their prior forms. Simon is assured that this is a new phenomenon. These rooms with so-called pilot seats were the origins of both the Ark project and the WoW's current obsession with reviving these scans. In order to get to the Dumbat, the pair need to find a security cipher. This puzzle is a dark one. A man named Brandon Wan worked in security and therefore had the most current cipher. Simon first uploads his consciousness into the machine in an attempt to interview him. He awakens in a dark space and immediately panics. He knows something is wrong. If you upload a different environment like a serene beach locale, it may be more comfortable, but it was not the room he was scanned in, and he knows something is wrong. Immediately he panics, and the simulation has to be shut down again. If you upload the scan room, he awakens and is okay until he hears Catherine's voice. She wasn't there when he was scanned, and he assumes that this is the WoW attempting to trick him. The only way to fix this is to make him comfortable. Exploring his room, it becomes apparent that he was dating someone named Alice, and she was there when he was scanned. After finding an audio file of Alice's voice, Catherine decides she can imitate her and make Brandon comfortable. Surely he'll share this important information to a loved one, right? With the simulation set to be in the scan room, with Catherine imitating Alice, Brandon is willing to part with the cipher.
That wasn't so bad. Soma really got me worked up, bastard.
Well, that's what you get for listening to his stories.
I guess I had it coming.
About Stromer. He said he needed a new cipher ASAP. What should I tell him?
It's alright. I can talk to him.
Wait, didn't Sean just tell you to take it easy? Don't worry, I'm not going to tell anyone.
I do feel hungover. Okay. It's 1729 over 42, 12 over 407. Got it?
Yeah, I got it. I'm sorry, Mr. DeLong. Brandon. Goodbye.
No, wait.
That's enough. We got what we need.
Is that what we are? Simulations?
Yeah, but it shouldn't make any difference. You're still you.
After that quality pep talk from Catherine, Simon can decide what to do with the simulation. I chose to erase this data. In order to get access to a way to the Ark, Brandon had to be revived and killed in rapid and successive fashion. He didn't deserve that. Even if he was just a simulation, it was real to him, and being revived in this place is a fate that no one deserves. Feeling peppy? Good, because we finally got access to the Dumbat. Finally, we have a submersible capable of withstanding the outrageous pressures at the depth of the ocean. I'm going to be honest with you. I somehow did not see that coming. In the next room, you can plug Catherine in.
Huh? Wait, this isn't... Oh no! WoW got to the Dunbat before we did, am I right?
Well, it was talking. That's rarely a good sign.
For once, Simon is actually the more positive and upbeat one. Catherine sees the light, tells Simon there's an elevator, and it drops down into the abyss, but Simon will have to get a specially made suit to withstand the pressures, and their best hope will be at Omicron Station. My brain keeps saying Unicron, but I know it's wrong, even if I want it to be right. Goddamn Ronald Reagan and his family-friendly era of cartoon programming. There's a note on the terminal left from the human version of Catherine Chun, apologizing for the people that took their lives. She never wanted to give false impressions to anyone, but she wanted to save something. There's a photo of the whole crew.
Wow, that's so cool. It's the whole gang.
A crew photo? Really? Who were you saving this for? The world was dead.
Thanks, Simon. I thought being an asshole wasn't invented until the 22nd century. Now I know better.
Also in the room is a biometric scanner of sorts. The scan reveals the truth of what Simon has become. The body inside the suit is actually one of Imogen Reed, a former co-worker of Catherine's, and his head is simply a camera, a Cortex chip, and the diving helmet held together with a compound called structure gel. This gel is what seems to be oozing out everywhere all over the station. Simon is more bothered than Catherine by this realization. She stops short of calling Miss Reed her friend.
No, hold on, back up. I'm one of your old colleagues?
Well, your body is. Imogen Reed.
That's disgusting.
Hey, don't say that. She was nice to me.
The last task before you can move on is to set up a dummy ARC model. The trick is to install the proper environment that will fit within the memory constraints of the module, while still providing a suitable simulacrum of the world for the occupants living inside of it. This is the darkest version of a minimum viable product. This task is equivalent to a stick inside of the terrarium so your pet lizard can feel like it's still at home in its native environment. With the simulation running and a dummy scan loaded, Catherine can get a feel for how this ARC simulation will work. She's impressed with how well this simulation is working. On our way to Unicron. Well, not really. There's a series of haunted as fuck hallways where you have to perform a series of tasks while being stalked by one of the WoW's monsters. Remember Brandon Wan? Well, you're gonna feel extra bad for what you did to him now. He locked himself behind while being chased by this or some other similar creature to save others so they could make their getaway. You get audio calls and old notes left behind from him in his final moments. This will be the third time I bring up the safe mode. This is one of the moments in the game where I wished I had it the most. These rooms are dripping with atmosphere. I'm by nature a thorough explorer, and I want to see every nook and cranny without having to quicken my pace due to a monster disturbance. At the same time, I'll also admit that this segment of the game is also where the tension got to me the most, due to the great lighting and creepy environmental storytelling. My desire to explore was constantly tempered by the noises of something shambling in the halls. For the purposes of this video, I'll cut this off here, and I'll note that I took a non-insignificant time in these areas.
Key factor at Delta, first assessment. Brought in today, January 16th, 2104.
Even after Simon gets out in the elevator, he's not out of the woods yet. The elevator breaks and he has to climb out of the shaft into a very hostile environment. Oh yeah, and this happens. After a dream where he's at home with Ashley, he's rudely awakened by his current reality. He's covered in monster goop, just like many of the others you've likely encountered thus far. I wish I had a more articulate way of describing that awakening. Oh well. This is another tense hide and seek segment. I feel like I took far longer on this run than I did the first to navigate the darkness to freedom. This meant a very prolonged time period where I was crawling through the darkness while listening to the sounds of creeping monsters. I have no problems admitting my inability to keep my cool in horror games. I enjoy them, but I'm very easily manipulated by them. This is predominantly a story video though, so as such, Simon escapes out into some kind of service area. To be honest, I don't know what it would be. It looks like an aqueduct system if it weren't for the fact that I know they're already underwater. I should note as well, by this point, Simon's interactions with the WoW's growths are getting very aggressive in nature. This interaction still heals him, but the WoW is basically swallowing his hand at this point. Simon eventually evacuates himself out of the station and back into the ocean. More bodies can be found with yet more memories of their final moments along the ocean floor.
Alright, let's find Omicron.
I just had to find a moment to again praise the sound and visual design along the ocean floor. Great music, great sound, and a setting that will likely feel foreign and alien to most. I said I loved it before, but another time couldn't hurt. By this point in the game, it's been a considerable amount of time since Catherine's been plugged in. When Simon finally does, this is how she responds.
Catherine?
What?
There you are.
Where are we?
We're right next to Omicron, a smaller building connected to the main site. Can't you tell?
No, my view is pretty limited. There's some heavy restrictions on my system access. Did you find a power suit?
Not yet. Trying to figure out how to get into Omicron, the big building.
Oh, okay. Keep up the good work.
That's it? You got nothing?
Good luck.
Thanks.
Simon was speaking for me at this point. I wanted some of her chit-chat. Doing all that lingering around monsters without her voice was disconcerting. Thankfully, Simon and Catherine's conversation continues, and this one hits a lot of the through lines of the story.
Kat, how are you so okay with all this?
With what?
Being a talking box, for one thing. Not being human.
It's not so bad.
So, you're not bothered at all by not having a body?
I'm getting there. You're making me feel really self-conscious.
Come on, be serious.
I never felt that comfortable being human in the first place. This isn't much worse.
Not being able to move would freak me out. Glad you got the box and not me.
Would make it a little easier to help out if I had a body, but you're doing a good job.
Just figured being able to stretch a little would give you some ease.
My physical constraints don't translate to my experience very well. I feel about as human as before, but as if suspended in air. Which is kind of interesting now that I think about it.
Kath, why do you think I was made? Why would this AI, the WoW, bring me here?
I don't think we could ever know. I have my own beliefs, but nothing that can be verified.
Tell me, why do you think the WoW brought me here?
The WoW had a range of assignments, but they all sprung from one single idea. Preserve humanity. When the comet hit the Earth, killing everything, leaving a fraction of humanity left alive, the WoW started to compensate.
It's restoring humanity.
I think so, but I don't think we share its definition of human. Or life, for that matter.
Catherine, are we alive?
That's an impossible question to answer. We lack meaningful definitions.
I just figured there must be a way to know. Know if this life is worth living.
You assume you've changed so much, but have you really?
I don't know. I don't feel so different. The world sure does. I never realized how much the idea of myself depended on where I am.
How do you mean?
I miss Toronto. And not because my friends and family are there, but because I know where I fit in. In Toronto, I know who I am.
That's an interesting observation.
I will definitely return to this conversation later. Simon solves a little fuse puzzle, but in order to open the doors, he needs some kind of password. Something wants Simon to come. With the doors open, Simon can make his way to Omicron. Outside, Simon can find more bodies from people who died just outside the shuttered doors of Omicron.
Won't fucking open! And nobody's answering to anything! What kind of cold-hearted motherfuckers would just leave us out here to die?
Don't you get it? They're dead. They're all dead.
Yeah. You're right.
How can you be so calm about this shit? We are dying!
How much air have you guys got?
20 minutes. Tops.
Hey, I'm in red! Seconds away before the CO2 gets me.
Stresky?
Why wait, right? I'm the master of my own fate!
Wait, Stress, what are you doing?
Stepping into Omicron, things aren't looking much better. There are bodies of beheaded individuals inside the doors, and although Simon can attempt to sense their last moments, he's unable to gather any information. If you recall from earlier, Simon is sensing their black box signal, and these individuals don't have heads, therefore, they have no black box left. Omicron has gone very dark. Upon entry to the central chamber, you will be treated to this experience. This room is located at the center of the facility, and you will be required to pass through it several times. This entity will make itself known several times as you pass through, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't give me the heebies on top of my GBs. Simon finally finds a docking point for Catherine, and she finally gets frank with him. Simon's Imogen Reed's corpse with some components stuffed in a dive helmet. All these components will not fit into one of the power suits. Her plan is to transfer his mind into a new body in one of the other power suits. Simon is very much against this plan. In an adjacent room, he finds a power suit.
Oh, God. Nice. I found one of the power suits. There's a dead woman inside. At least I think it's a woman. Just like the body we found in the annex. She's missing her head.
Gross. This could work in our favor, though. Look for a terminal nearby, see if you can boot it up.
Catherine really knows how to see the silver linings. So just in case you haven't pieced this together yet, dear viewer, Simon's task is to find a new Cortex chip, a battery pack, and structure gel to affix to the corpse in the power suit. There's a lot of flavor to be found in all these rooms all across Omicron. Descriptions of how the WoW started deviating from its original instruction, examples of how the structure gel that's been leaking out of the facility has modified the nearby marine life, and labs with animals that have been tested on using the structure gel. I'll acknowledge this flavor, but I won't go too in depth. It turns out the structure gel was actually modified by the WoW, and this is what has given it the properties that, well, for instance, gives it the capability to bring to life a man from Toronto and stick him in the middle of the post-apocalypse. While at some of the terminals, Simon gets more messages like the one that gave him the password for Omicron. Get the virus. I'll trust these messages implicitly and ask no questions. After using the gel on a poor rat and fixing a circuit board with the stuff, Simon's able to procure the structure gel. Yeah, this thing's noises alone made this area a non-starter for me. I played this twice and I've found no clever way to bypass it. I tried using items thrown to distract it, nothing. I just run past and grab the nearby battery pack. Seriously, fuck the noises this thing makes. The Cortex chip can be found in this robot after solving a trivial puzzle. Again, the noises this thing make are incredibly uncomfortable to me. The dispatch office has notes that look like they were scrawled by a madman, but they have intense messages about delivering the gel to the heart of the WoW. When all three items are procured, the entity escapes the room.
Lock the door!
It's locked! What's going on?
Not a horror game. Get the fuck out of here. The time has come to apply the components to the corpse and see if we can transfer Simon's consciousness. Simon still has qualms with this plan. Catherine tells him that she'll go on and take the suit if he refuses. Long story short, he jumps into the nearby pilot seat to get a brand new scan of himself. This will lead to this new power suit version of Simon having his up-to-date identity. He'll blink and be in another room as he understands it. Ain't nothing to it but to do it.
Indians thought photos would steal their souls.
In this case, they'd be right.
There must be something wrong. Can't you run a diagnosis or something?
What was that?
No, it's just...
Why was it still talking?
It's the same like before.
Catherine, why was he still talking?
That's how it works, you know that.
What do you mean?
You know it's not magic. You were copied. The sleeping Simon in the seat was copied, and now you are here, just like Simon lived on in Toronto.
God damn you, Kath. 2 Simons? There can't be 2 Simons.
What did you think would happen?
That you were gonna take my mind and put it into another body, like a brain transplant.
I'm sorry, it wouldn't work that way.
You realize how messed up this is?
Please, I didn't mean to upset you.
How did you expect me to react to this shit?
Please stop.
You're fucking disgusting. What's gonna happen to him?
He'll sleep for a while, a few days.
And then what? Wake up in this fucking nightmare again? All alone? So cruel.
Well, what do you want me to do with him? Make friends? Let him know that we have to leave him behind when we go into the abyss?
What if he didn't need to wake up?
You'd do that?
I don't know. Maybe.
There. I set it up for you. Hit the switch if you want to drain his battery. He'll die within a minute. I'd rather not stay plugged in any longer.
Simon should have seen this coming. The other Simon will sleep for a few days and will awaken alone. You as the player are given the choice of what to do with the old Simon. If you walk over, you can take a look at your prior form. I chose to drain this Simon's battery. Sorry, Simon. We've spent enough time with him to know he would not do well waking up alone in this world. At the same time, Simon would have been alone had he not chosen to take this form, and Catherine would have left him behind when she took the body. This is actually the best result in spite of how dark and cruel it feels. Someone might feel that Simon has been very dense here. He's seen the way these scans work. It's not a brain transplant, it's a brain copy. There's a lift that can lower the pair into the abyss. The mood on this lift is pretty dour as one can imagine. Simon asks Catherine if there's room for him in an afterlife. The real him died over 100 years ago. What about the version of him he just killed? Would heaven be filled with copies of the same person? He flipped a coin and won the coin flip, and ended up in the version of him that would continue to live. Catherine quietly listens as Simon has a breakdown. He pleads for her to respond, to say anything.
Please say something. I don't want to think. Please.
I don't know what to say. I don't want to upset you.
Say anything.
When I was little, I used to climb the stairs all the way to the top of the building. And I can still feel how I had to, tuck my arm so I could push the heavy steel door open. Well, the first time that I dared go up there, I stepped out onto the roof and watched the smog rise and fall over Taipei. I got all the way up to the corner ledge and, I felt the warm wind in my hair and the sun was setting and the streets below were shadowed by the tall buildings. The people pushing through the crowd flowed like paint from an artist's brush. Street food vendors filled the air with aromas of all my favorite foods. For a brief moment, I felt connected to the world in a way that I never had before. It was the most profound feeling of comfort and sense of belonging I could ever hope for. I really never felt the same way again, but I went up to the roof many times after. I'm not religious, but I can see why people would be. The privilege of being makes a strong case, at least every once in a while.
Do you still feel that sense of awe? Even like this?
Things are different, but we're still here.
What's the point of going on? Everyone's gone. All the people still left are digital copies trapped in computers at the bottom of the sea. We'll never be able to rebuild or reclaim what we were.
She questions whether he is actually so unhappy in his present form. He explains that even in his darkest concepts of a future, they always included his prior life in Toronto. He feels uprooted here. He lacks a sense of place in his present form. Catherine says that he can make new friends in the future. Surely people will want to know the time traveler. Mid-conversation, the lift stops and the power dies. Simon has to go up top and reset the breaker on the lift. When the power returns, Catherine goes right on talking. She explains to Simon that her experience is like an ever-changing moment. Simon compares it to sleeping, but she explains, you fall asleep and awaken in the same place. She just continues from her last moment while realizing she's now in a new location. I can't imagine getting used to that. Simon needs these conversations with Catherine to keep his head on straight, but you as the player actively yearn for her company when she isn't around. It's good stuff.
You did it! You did it! I will make preparations.
Soon you will finally figure out what this guy is on about. Surely there are plenty of folks smarter than me who've already pieced together what's going on with this guy, but my first time, I'll be honest, I was pretty much oblivious. At the bottom of the depths, the current is strong, and it can very easily obstruct your vision. These are lit pylons that can be used for guidance. Follow the blue pylons to get to Tau. The backsides are red, and that will indicate that you've got yourself turned around. More than just being used for guidance, they also have the added effect of scaring off the mutated wildlife. The WoW structure gel has created giant monsters in these depths, but they don't care for light. Wandering too far away from the light will quickly lead to your demise. The inside of Tau has another monster to navigate around. Once you open this door, it's unleashed from its locked area. I love this door that the creature is locked behind, by the way. Something about the sounds of each bolt unlocking itself, methinks. The hallways are set up so one may take a circuitous path to navigate around this creature. At this point, your task is to unlock the next path forward while making your way around the creature. So I won't linger much on the area. There's a phone here, though, that's worth discussing. You can call a bunch of different areas of Tau, and most of them ring forever. The infirmary, though, that gets an answer.
Anyone there?
Not in the mood to talk to robots. No offense.
Since someone just answered the phone in the infirmary, many people want to venture there first once you have access to Tau. That's what I did anyway. I unlocked the path forward and ventured that way.
You're
Are you human?
Sarah Lindwall, payload technician at your service.
She's under the impression that there are others still alive at Omicron. We know they didn't make it. Simon calmly explains that he's been all over, and none of her friends are left.
And I'm the only living person you've met? You mean I'm the last living human on the planet?
She has been in possession of this ark the whole time, but she couldn't let go of it. She doesn't have the strength to take it to Tau or to fire it, and decides to give it to Simon. With the ark in his possession, Sarah has one final request of him.
Can I get you anything? Do anything for you?
You could kill me.
Good one.
I decided to honor her wishes and disable her life support. Simon can't believe that she would want to die. They have the Ark, but she's 100% the real deal, the last human alive. Once the button is pushed, Sarah asks Simon to stay with her. It'll only be moments after all.
Would you stay with me, please? It won't be long now. Please, just stay. What a crazy thing this was. Life. At least I won't have to turn 30. Hooray! Wish I could have died at home with my friends. Have you ever been to Greenland? It's very beautiful. Well, at least when you get out of the city. Nanook is busy, and yes, there's like 12 million people trying to get around, but it's a great place. Or rather, it was a great place before the comet ended it all. You know what? I prefer it this way. I liked pathos. Liked my colleagues. Ian, Nick, Jasper, even Catherine. People thought she was weird because she was quiet, but she was cool. Simon, you still there?
I'm here, Sarah.
Don't let him die, okay? Send them out there. To the stars.
Her final moments deserve to be shown in full. The voice acting is great, and they smartly left the diegetic sounds of Pathos 2 as the only backing track as she somberly shared her last moments with Simon. Expertly done, in my opinion. A nearby terminal has documents that discuss how to keep someone alive with an intravenous drip, or how to make the remaining rations on station last as long as possible. These files were last accessed by Sarah Lindhall. So, the Ark is in your possession now, and the stakes have never been higher. You have to honor her last wishes and send her friends to the stars. The assorted rooms attached to this common area had the bodies of those that failed to launch the Ark, and there's so much to be said here, but I think I'll continue to leave many of these finer details about the crew and their final moments for those who want to play it for themselves. Some of the bodies left in these rooms have been salvaged, for lack of a better term, by the WoW. Can you call these still moving bodies the remaining humans? This is the biggest question the game poses to you after all. What makes us humans? Where do you draw the line in our humanity? There's one room that's locked, and again, the password is given to us by the otherworldly force. This room is that of Johann Ross. Looking at his drawings and the details scrawled all over the place, it becomes clear. This is the entity that has been speaking to Simon. In life, he had orchestrated a plan to destroy the WoW. According to his drawings, the heart of the WoW is somewhere next to the site Alpha. Once the world was destroyed, Johann Ross gave complete access to the WoW to take over life support systems. It dropped to a low energy state. It changed its protocols and began to grow. This is when the structure gel began to ooze from all over Pathos 2. The WoW has redefined what is good enough for saving the humans.
The WoW is reaching out to every machine, every life form, to manipulate, to control. It's trying to help save its creators from all this, just like the protocol demands. But really, what is good enough? Where is the line drawn for what is human and what is not? Would walking corpses do? Would a group of machines thinking they're human be acceptable? We can't trust a machine to know, to understand what it means to be. We have to terminate the WoW project. It can be done. I just need to get some help from Omicron.
We could see all this coming, and it was pretty clear that was going on just purely by looking at the assorted crew members kept alive by tubes, but it's nice to have someone explicitly state this fact. The Ark gets set on a little transport system, but the path is blocked and Simon is forced to take a detour. The remnants of Johann lead him on a detour that takes him straight to the heart of the WoW. The underwater setting with the WoW's tentacles spreading in every direction is yet another great set piece. Johan calls this area the heart of the WoW, and it really feels like you're entering a large biomechanical heart at certain moments. Johan finally decides to be less vague with Simon. He created a toxin that was infused with the structure gel back at Omicron, and then he was dispatched before he was capable of transmitting it to the WoW. The same contaminated structure gel that Simon used to create his present form. Johan calls Simon a venomous snake. At the heart of the WoW, Simon gives his hand to it. Johan explains that Simon is now the only one immune to the new structure gel pattern, and he wants to finish off Simon. Johan is swatted away like a fly by the WoW bursting from the floors. Simon survives this ordeal and escapes, sans hand. I will be 100% honest, I might be dense, but I'm not certain of what this version of Johan is. Is he a WoW monster creation that somehow managed to maintain his sense of self? If so, why didn't he get the gel and do it for himself? Simon can sense black box signals and old radio transmissions in his current state, but Johan feels tangible and real. I want to acknowledge my own lack of understanding here before moving on. I don't actually think it's insanely pertinent. It's just more a finer detail that I'm probably missing something obvious. During Simon's escape, one of the nearby creatures chases him. The lights along the path to the space gun will not keep him safe. If he slows down, he will be caught by this creature. Eventually, Simon does make it to the space gun. Catherine has a rude awakening when Simon is suddenly missing a hand. Simon is surprisingly calm here. He asks if his arm will be intact in the Ark, and she confirms this is so. Simon knows the automated tramway was supposed to take the Ark here, but he isn't certain exactly where. While searching, he stumbles on the body of someone familiar.
Are you suggesting we keep it down here? Doesn't that defeat the whole purpose? Eternity among the stars, remember?
The people inside the Ark won't know the difference. We can just keep it down here, and we don't have to risk the Ark being shot through 5,000 meters of broken barrel, and then push through another 100,000 meters of a dust-filled atmosphere.
Will the casing stand all that pressure?
Well, the odds aren't great.
Catherine, say something.
I don't care what you think. I'm launching it.
No need to be like that. Let's just hang on to it for a while and think about it. We can launch it later.
No, that wasn't the deal. We needed to save them. To launch it. Out there, it's hope. Down here, it's a fucking terrarium waiting to die with the rest of us.
Come on, Catherine, it's not asking much. Let's just think about it before we risk the only hope humanity has to survive this hell.
No, we launch it today. This is my project, my Ark.
It's bigger than that. Don't you get it? It's not for you to decide. We're talking about the fate of mankind.
Get away from the Ark! I'm taking it.
No, you're not.
I'm not gonna let you ruin this!
Stop it!
Guys, calm down!
Get away from me! No!
What the fuck did you do?
It was an accident.
Catherine, talk to me. Catherine...
Simon explains that he found Catherine's body. She is devastated to find out that her crewmates killed her. For once, she does seem bothered to remember about her corporeal form. She asks Simon about his friends in Toronto. She says she never had any friends, and Simon tells her that he'll be her friend. She doesn't want any pity friends, though. It's a little late for that. I'd say these two have been friends for a while now, even if this friendship formed in a less than ideal situation. Simon loads up the Ark into the space bullet, and Catherine says the Ark can survive in space for thousands of years. For her, this is a chance to give humanity a chance to continue. This is probably a bad time to comment on this, but the setup is called the Omega Space Gun, and that's just fucking rad. I looked to see if I could buy a Nerf toy or something with the same name, and all it pulled up was Soma stuff. Just saying, I'd rock an Omega space gun. Simon asks Catherine how the two of them will make it onto the Ark. She explains that the gun is fired with a pilot seat. As they're preparing to fire the gun, she'll scan them and upload them onto the Ark. Simon jumps into the pilot seat, loads the Ark into its vessel, and prepares to fire it into space. I will leave this final segment in its entirety.
Here we go. No turning back.
Thank you, Simon.
Don't mention it.
It's an amazing thing you did. And I want you to know I appreciate it.
Time, 20 seconds.
What's the matter with the upload?
Just give it a second.
Thought you guys would have better bandwidth in the future.
Ten seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6.
You gotta be kidding me!
5, 4, 3.
Come on, load!
2.
Yes! Fuck yeah, we made it! Woo! I'm still here. I'm still here. Catherine? Catherine?
I'm here.
What the hell happened? What went wrong?
Nothing. They're out there, among the stars. We're here.
No. We were getting on the Ark. I saw it. It finished loading just before it launched.
Yeah, I saw.
Then why are we still here?
Simon, I can't keep telling you how it works. You won't listen. You know why we're here. You were copied onto the Ark. You just didn't carry over. You lost the coin toss. We both did. Just like Simon at Omicron, just like the man who died in Toronto 100 years ago.
No, this is bullshit. We came all this way. We launched the Ark.
I know it sucks, but our copies are up there. Catherine and Simon are both safe on the Ark. Be happy for them.
Are you crazy? We're gonna die down here with those fuckers living at large on a spaceship. They're not us. They're not us.
I'm sorry you feel that way, Simon. I'm proud of what we did. We made sure that something of the hundreds of thousands of years of human history survives, that something lives on.
No, fuck this. Fuck this. Fuck you. Fuck you, Catherine. You lied. And I believed in you. I trusted you. You said we're getting on the fucking Ark.
We are on the Ark, you idiot. I didn't lie. I can't be responsible for your goddamn ignorance. You
fuck! Catherine? Please don't leave me alone. Catherine? Catherine?
There is so much going on here to discuss. I will do that, but first, that isn't technically the actual ending. After the credits, we check in on the Simon that won the coin flip. Catherine was right. His arms are intact. Also, they are decidedly more human than they were moments before. He emerges from the cave to find himself in a beautiful and idyllic setting. He's prompted by the questionnaire from the beginning of the game. I again chose to answer as though I was Simon. Your choices may differ from mine. After his experiences on Pathos 2, this place could not be more serene. The most poignant question to me is, do you think your new existence will be a life worth living? I answered, maybe we can find a new sense of meaning in this world. Depending on your experiences in this game, or your general opinions on what makes humanity, your answers may differ from mine. I find that this is cleverly done, as your answers given in the confines of Pathos 2 will likely be influenced heavily by that environment. Being in a fantastical meadow next to a waterfall tends to alter someone's mood, and it will likely make you more open to this virtual transition to humanity. The game ends as Simon emerges from the forest and introduces this new version of himself to Catherine.
Catherine! I can't believe we actually made it.
Well, we did.
I'm so relieved.
It's okay, Simon. Everything's all right now.
What a fucking ending, right? When the space gun is prepping for launch, the upload of Simon and Catherine's consciousness is so tense. Will Simon make it on the Ark? Holy cow, that got to me. The Simon on Pathos 2 refused to acknowledge the truth of what he was doing by firing the Ark. Catherine has explained to him multiple times to this point the way the brain scans work, but he was still blindsided by the fact that he didn't end up on the Ark. I don't think Simon is dumb. I just don't think he wanted to admit to himself the truth in this situation. With Catherine getting corrupted, he is left alone at the bottom of the ocean with only the WoW's monstrosities to keep him company. This is the reason I chose to drain the battery on the prior version of Simon at Omicron. For those who chose to leave him alive there, this ending gives those folks a glimpse of what that reality would actually look like. There are many people who've criticized Simon for how dense he is, but I am absolutely certain that many players had forgotten the realities of these scans. I would not believe it if every single person comments to me that they knew this Simon wasn't going to make it on the Ark. Feel free to tell me if you were in the know, but if there aren't at least a few folks admitting that they thought Simon would be transported to the Ark, I'll know that some of you are liars. I gave a big spoiler warning and encouraged people to play it if they hadn't done so yet, but I wasn't born yesterday. Many of the people who watch this have not or will not play it. For the remainder of the script, I'll speak as though your only knowledge of this game is through the video. So let's do a pretty concise rundown of the events here. Simon Jarrett gets a brain scan in Toronto. He awakens at the bottom of the ocean. It's a sci-fi horror game, so many people will assume that his brain scan was used in some way for this version of Simon. I was one of those people. Some might think that this is merely a simulation that is used by Dr. Munchie in the process of diagnosing what ails Simon. The truth is quickly revealed. His brain scan was used by the WoW to repopulate Pathos 2 with what it still considers to be human life. In a crisis state, it reprogrammed itself to protect the remaining humans. Only its method of protection is not what most would consider in their best interests. There are still many members of the crew kept alive by a series of structure gel tubes. Some of them have been put into assorted robots. There are some who are completely content in these forms. They cannot distinguish this sort of existence from their prior forms. Robin Bass is under the impression that she's already inside the Ark. Others are trapped alone in a room or hooked up to tubes and forced to live a miserable and lonely existence. When you kill Ashley early on, she's not ready to go. She asks you to find help, and you know there's none to be found, but it doesn't change that she doesn't want to die, no matter how bad her current state is. Catherine Chun created the idea for the Ark while she was alive, and she began scanning all her remaining crew members to transfer their consciousnesses inside. Some of them decided that they wanted their life to continue right from the moment of the scan, and they didn't want to leave a stranded second version of themselves inside Pathos with the rogue AI of the WoW haunting them. Catherine then rallied the troops, and right at the moment of truth, many of the crew members got cold feet and decided they couldn't launch the rocket. They took Catherine's life and held onto the Ark, as it was seen as mankind's last hope. The remaining crew slowly succumbed to the WoW or other hazards around Pathos, and Sarah Lindwall was left as the last remaining human and guardian of the Ark. This is late in the game, Shep, but I wanted to remark on the conversation Simon has with Catherine about how he misses Toronto. Not because Toronto is the home of everyone he knows, or knew, but because he knows his place there. I think this is one of the biggest reasons that Simon struggles with his reality in a different way than all the other denizens of Pathos 2. Before those people were scanned, they lived on Pathos 2. This is a world they already understand. Simon is different. He's a fish out of water in this environment. That pun wasn't intended. This shows the reality of his condition in his face in a way that the other robots do not have to deal with. I just thought this was something that I kind of overlooked in my original script. When Simon eventually meets up with Catherine, he realizes that she too is trapped in a machine. She's come to terms with this truth, unlike many of the others that you'll find. Her brain scan was done early in the project. She has no idea what's become of the Ark. As Simon and Catherine make her way towards Tau and the Ark, they also test all of our definitions of humanity and morality. Simon's forced to kill multiple humans and machines kept alive by the WoW. They're in varying states of alertness and physical comfort. The machine that Simon kills to get the tool chip is merrily going on about his day. I chose to kill the prior version of Simon. If he was actually the human from Toronto sleeping in that chair, would I make the same choice? I honestly don't know. I chose to delete Brandon Wu's data. I did not want to leave any traces of his scans for the WoW to possibly manipulate at a later time. But I did that only after reviving him and prodding him to my own benefit before inevitably turning him offline. I essentially brought him to life and killed him numerous times. The morality of these actions are questionable to say the least. Simon is given the chance to destroy the WoW and does so. Most people probably would have no problems with that choice. The thing is, the WoW is creating life and sentient creatures down at the bottom of the ocean on a dead planet. If left to its own devices, who is to say what new species might grow to eventually inherit the planet with the benefits of structure gel to aid them in surviving the hostile environment? We all have to ask ourselves where the line is drawn. I was with Catherine in sending the Ark to space and giving these brain scans, these humans reduced to zeros and ones, a chance to have their own fairy tale ending. What is their eventual fate? Could they possibly be discovered by some other being? Something akin to us sending a golden record with the sounds of Earth to space with the Voyager 1? Someone might have a bad taste in their mouth at this premise. Their definition of a human being might be restricted to those of us with flesh and blood. This game poses a lot of questions to the player. For the few of you that have watched quite a few of my videos, you might be able to tell how much I love open-ended questions. These are the types of games that linger in my brain. Black and white morality is fine, but when given those options, you choose the obviously good or bad choice and never think back upon that choice. I think about that poor Simon at Omicron that some left to awaken alone without his one voice in his ear that kept him sane. But he is alive at least. Well, from a certain point of view. It's impossible for me not to think of the poor Simon who lost the coin flip and is stuck at Tau with a non-functional Omni tool and no Catherine. Sure, he succeeded. He got the Ark launched. But he wasn't in it for the Simon who won the coin flip, though. Was the WoW even wrong to make the drastic choices it made to sustain humanity? This whole game's plot couldn't happen if it didn't make those choices. I think most people would think of Ashley, hooked up to structure gel, as still a human on a kind of futuristic and horrifying life support. But what about Catherine? What about those on the Ark? Are they humans? In the beginning, I stated that I had a disagreement with Joseph Anderson and his statement that this game is not a horror game. I showcased Simon navigating around the creatures in some tense moments. If you're caught by the creatures, you'll respawn very close to where you were caught. If you're caught again, you'll have to reload from the last autosave, and those are generous. This makes the stakes of being caught low by these enemies. I get that this can reduce the scare factor for the player. Being scary and being a horror game is two different things to me though. Frankly, the sci-fi horror setting should be enough to dismiss the notion that it isn't a horror game. The fact of the matter is the real horror of this game is not the lurking WoW monsters on the assorted stations. It's not the structure gel monstrous fish swimming around the depths of the ocean. The true horror of this game is Sarah Linwall being stuck as the last human on Earth. The world above scorched from a comet. She's kept herself alive and alone at the bottom of the ocean, safeguarding a project filled with memories of her lost friends. I hate to disagree with someone who's clearly more competent than I am. The biggest reason this bothers me is I feel like this is setting up a flawed expectation, and he's drawn more eyes to the game than I ever will. This game is the darkest existential horror scenario I can even recall. So, yeah, it bothers me. I didn't focus heavily on solving the miscellaneous puzzles or playing hide and seek with the enemies. The gameplay is subject to taste. There are some who see this kind of limited interactivity and are immediately out. If a story in a video game is of no consequence to you and gameplay is everything, then maybe this truly isn't for you. But also, why would you watch this then if you don't care for story? Maybe I'm addressing no one here, right? This game tells a great story with well-developed and well-voice-acted characters and a well-realized setting. I've spoiled the biggest plot points of the game. That will make a playthrough at this point less dramatic. I will say though, if you're like me, you'll still find enjoyment in the more thorough explanation of events through dialogue and data entries. You'll find the crew members all over the place, and you can scan their black box, hear their final moments. Through the environment, you can make a mental inventory of the entire crew. What station did they work at? Where did they come from? What are their hobbies? I left out the bulk of these moments, and many of these moments were what built up such a dire atmosphere at the bottom of the Atlantic. So I think that's about satisfactory for me. I questioned myself on how thorough I should be, what moments should I allow to breathe in the in-game scenes, and what could I adequately describe without squashing the moment. It's pretty clear that when the in-game moment is good, I like to let it speak for itself. This means a lot of conversations that I let play out could be condensed if I chose to. If I try and describe the entirety of this game without leaving in some of these conversations between Simon and Catherine, then there would be an element missed for the audience though. It's a fine line that I walk around like a drunk guy during a sobriety test. Tell me how I did. Have you played this game? Are there elements that I glossed over that I should have spoken upon? Are you mad because I can't make a quality, concise video to save my life? Well, that's fair. If you have criticism, please make it constructive though, because man, I can't change my voice. I can't change it. I'm sorry. Thank you to everyone who stayed this long. Thanks to those who have watched multiple other videos. I've started to make a little change from this hobby now, and I used some of it to buy a bunch of games during the spring sale. I know I promised to make a Cyberpunk video, but I have 3 different scripts that I hate so far, so I'll get to that eventually once I decide my voice for that script. Thanks again, friends, for the clicks, the likes, subscribes, all that. I'll see you again when I finally decide to do a Cyberpunk, or maybe I'll do something else.